Welcome to Staying Home. I am Max. I hope you are at home, safe and comfortable, enjoying the program. We will have an LAFC supporter ahead to talk about her efforts on the front line with the hospitals right now here in Los Angeles. And one of my former plus ones will discuss the situation developing in the Bundesliga. But it is my pleasure to welcome in, for the first time on the program, our head coach, Bob. Bob, how are you doing these days?
Good, Max. Missed the game, missed training, missed the bank, miss our fans. I think it's great that you guys have somebody who's been working on the front lines, because I know that so many of our fans in their jobs are really doing important jobs right now. And so I keep saying they're the heroes, and we thank all of them.
It's amazing, Bob. A great conversation. We all miss you very much. We look forward to seeing you at the Performance Center or at the stadium here at some point. In the meantime, we don't have a set timeline, but you have to keep your team as sharp as possible under these circumstances. Can you share with us what the daily sessions will be like for your players in the time being?
The guys who really deserve credit at the moment are Gavin Benjafield and Daniel Guzman and Tom Job, because they're the ones that have stayed connected with the players on a daily basis, trying to make sure that they're getting in their workouts, keeping track of the loads, those kind of things. It really takes a big effort, because obviously depending upon where a player lives and what he has access to, it's not easy. The workouts are individual right now. Some guys have bikes. Some guys still can get access to areas where they can run. They did a good job of delivering equipment, so guys have something, whether it's a kettlebell or a plate that they can use in their living room. Everybody's trying to find ways to stay sharp mentally and physically. The one thing it does, Max, is, it tests an individual, because, we all know that to become a top player or to become successful in any area, your motivation, your ability to work maybe when others are not working or others are not watching, man, that's key. And so we don't have that ability to see them in training every day right in front of us, and to assess some little details. So it's a collective effort. And so those guys have done the lion's share of the work right now. The rest of us try to just keep tabs on everybody, make sure family, friends are doing all right, because, that's the challenge for everyone right now, to stay connected even when we don't get a chance to be together.
When the season paused, the season was obviously just 2-3 weeks in. A lot of new players still adjusting. Has this been harder for you during this to connect with those new players, or has it given them some time to perhaps dig some roots in a little bit here in Los Angeles?
No, there's nothing good about this from that standpoint. When you bring young players in like Jose Cifuentes and Pancho Ginella, obviously the key is getting to know them and seeing them every day and seeing them in the training and talking to them. I felt like we were off to a good start, but it all just came to a halt. So I know that some of the teammates of those guys have done an excellent job making sure that the young players are hanging in there. Right now, everybody's on a survival course, but we understand that this is what's happening around the world, and that our efforts in the moment to be disciplined, stay home, those are so important to give the virus a chance for the curve to flatten, as we keep talking about. And it really is so important to make sure that all of our healthcare workers, our doctors and nurses, are just not overwhelmed. I mean, obviously, that part of the crisis has been so difficult to keep track of, and that's why we always say that, we applaud and our hearts go out to all the people on the front lines.
Bob, I know you've gone through some unique circumstances in your coaching career. One of them had a situation where there was no fans in the stadium after the Port Said tragedy in Egypt. The domestic league was campaigned, as you know, and then the national league, the national team World Cup qualifiers began, and you played in front of an empty stadium. I know it's not apples to apples, these situations, but what can you take out of that situation that you can apply here today?
If I go to the players in Egypt, when the league stopped, those guys stayed so positive about the national team. They came into camps so motivated. They knew we had a World Cup qualifier. And at a time when there was uncertainty, their ability to stay focused was amazing. And so when I talk about how we need players who are motivated and can stay focused in this period when there are no real answers about exactly when we start, I think back to so many of the players in Egypt. We did have the advantage that we had camps. And so even when there was no league, we could get the players into camps. We couldn't play friendlies in Egypt at that time, but we found a way to play in Doha and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and you name it, anywhere we could get a game. But that ability to see guys and work with them was really important. And we've got to try in the moment to stay connected, even though we're not together.
Assuming best case scenario, Bob, and it is a waiting game right now, have you started the process of formulating what your training sessions will be like when you return, whether on a limited basis or when it can come to more of a full team basis?
Well, the answer is, what are we going to be able to do? And so I would expect that at first there will be some individual type training where you still keep players distanced. And that will be work that's similar to what happens at the end of training sometimes, where Ante, Kenny, Mike, myself work with a couple of players. It's more technical. It can be a combination of some technical exercise with some running and a way to put things together. But obviously the part of football that involves decision making, that involves awareness of situations, that involves contact, those things will have to wait until we get clearance for the real game to start. So we wait to see exactly how things will be, how long it takes. We're excited for anything at this point, just to see guys, see their faces, be on the field. That's going to be a huge step. So I'm excited to think that maybe those days aren't so far ahead.
And a reminder of the unique circumstance you're dealing with the technical skills that you'll have to fine tune when everyone returns again. We don't know about the timetable for Major League Soccer. It's all very fluid here. Some leagues look to be returning a little sooner. How much attention have you spent to looking at what the other international football leagues are doing and potentially resuming play?
Yeah, I think we've all watched. Again, if you see what happened in Germany a few weeks, it was guys showing up and doing individual work. Separation in terms of spaces, and now little by little they're moving towards starting their season in empty stadiums. So I think that's probably the kind of return to play that we'll have in MLS, but Germany, for different reasons, is a little bit ahead of us. So I think that's been probably the league that makes the most sense to be on top of.
The 1990s in Chicago was an incredible time. You had the Fire there, Bob. And a little bit before your arrival, you had Michael Jordan there in the early 90s, The Last Dance. Everyone tuned in. I'm sure you did. Any thoughts on MJ and the 1990 Bulls?
Yeah, it was an awesome watch. Actually, The Last Dance is 97, 98. And I arrived in Chicago at the end of the 97 season. Chicago was coming into the league in 98. So I remember those days. What I really love most about watching the show is just when you get some insight as to what went on inside the team. We all try to build cultures that are successful. And we always heard stories about what things were like on the inside of the Bulls. I used to say to players, and when I was coaching at Princeton, as a way of making a point, I would sometimes say, how many of you would want to play with Michael Jordan? And all of them would put their hands up. And I would kind of look at them and say, he'd destroy all of you. And my point was always that when you get to the highest levels on the inside, the bar gets set so high. And obviously, anybody who watched Jordan at all knew that he was an incredible competitor. And when you get some of these inside looks as to how he set the bar high for himself and what that meant for his teammates, I think that's something that all players, coaches can take something from, because when you try to build a successful culture, it's a mix. It's encouragement. There's got to be some love, but for sure, you've got to find ways where you challenge guys and where there are real standards. And you don't get there by just telling everybody what they want to hear every day. And I really, in the first 2 episodes, you get a little taste of all of the things that we've read. If you've been a fan, different books. Upstairs on my bookshelf is still the David Halberstam book about playing for keeps, where he dug deep into even the dream team in '92 and what some of those practice sessions were like. So I think that goes a long way towards trying to build a successful culture.
Just from the viewer's perspective, a nice departure for all the sports fans missing sports out there. MJ, the best player of all time, Bob?
For me, yes.
Me too.
He did it with championships. Obviously, the respect that other guys had for him. Let's face it, it's close. There's a lot of other guys. I mean, if you try to pick your best 5 in the NBA for history with a little bit of a positional perspective, it's an impossible task. But I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't have Michael Jordan first on the list.
It was a fun watch. If you were around the 90s, as we both were, it was really tremendous. We look forward to seeing LAFC wow us when they come back here. Bob, all the best in your preparations as you get ready for when that time is. Thanks for joining us on Staying Home.
All right, Max. And to all our fans, stay home, stay safe, stay strong.
During this pandemic, so many people, members, supporters of the LAFC family fighting on the front lines. We're now joined by one of them, Alex Valerio. She sits with the 3252. She is an Expo original. She's also a respiratory therapist working with the ventilators. And Alex, as I welcome you in, maybe you can tell me a little more specifically what you do.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so my job as a respiratory therapist is just to manage ventilators. So basically people that are on life support. I know that there's been a lot of talk about, ventilators lately during this pandemic. So that's basically what we do. We're there when they're putting the tubes into people's throats to get them onto life support. And we're just there managing and taking care as we go,
Alex, I know I speak on behalf of everyone. We're so fortunate to have you out there on the front lines of this pandemic, but it's interesting to note that you are new to the medical profession, and here you are, there on those front lines. So I don't know, you can prepare for this, but how have you managed to prepare for such a sudden change?
Yeah, so I've only been a respiratory therapist for about 1.5 years now. It's hard to say that anyone was really prepared for something like this to happen. I mean, in the medical field, you're trained to be prepared to whatever comes in through that door, but I think this is something much more different. But we've all had to just change our mindsets into fighting this virus, and we all just try and stay positive, and that's how you can really only prepare for it.
Here in the United States, most people entered a quarantine. The pandemic certainly hit around mid-March. So how have you seen from your workplace things change from, say, the middle of March to where we are now?
It's definitely changed. I don't think that anybody really expected it to be this way, to get this bad. But we see different things every day. Everything is changing constantly every day. There's something new, a new protocol, or just something different every day. So we just roll with it. It's just, I feel like at this point, it's just going with what we think is best.
Alex, what has been the toughest part for you and your fellow medical coworkers?
I know that a lot of people in the medical field right now are just scared of, bringing it home to our families. That's probably everyone's main concern right now. And for sure, like me, definitely. I mean, and it's worse that we don't get to see our families, who are the ones that comfort us, But that's probably been the biggest adjustment for all of us.
It's got to be very difficult. And again, thank you for what you do. And I think people take that for granted because they are with their families. They're staying home like myself. So again, thank you for everything you're doing during this pandemic. And I'm sure you've heard and seen the public outpour of support from everyone in the medical field who is sacrificing themselves every day. Gestures, the applause at a certain hour of the day. But what is the biggest gesture that the public can do to help you?
Honestly, at this point, just stay home. That's probably the biggest gesture anybody can have for all of us. But it's great to see the outpour that, our communities have been giving us support. They've been donating food. They've been the applause, like you said. Stores are allowing us to go and have our own hours, which I think is great because it's not easy for all of us to have time to shop. It's different. But definitely just staying home is the biggest gesture anyone can have for us right now.
We are recording this show just a little bit after the weekend of April 18th and 19th, where there was reports of an uptick of cases. How have you seen that change over that weekend, Alex?
It's definitely changed. There's been an increase in cases and in deaths as well. We've seen it, but it's just, I hope this was our surge. I hope this is what they're talking about. And I hope that it just stays at least flat rather than, the curve keep going up. And hopefully we can just overcome this and then just get down to the bottom of the curve.
The flattening of the curve, it's an expression everyone has memorized now. It's certainly something we're hoping we're getting closer to. Time will certainly tell. And time will tell, Alex, when we all get together once again at Bank of California Stadium. I know you are a devout LAFC supporter, sitting there in the North End with your friends and family, and I'm sure you miss it. So how have you been able to fill that void of being a sports fan, to be able to find things that can kind of replace what you experience watching LAFC?
It's hard to replace that. Can you even replace that? But just watching the videos that people have been reposting of better times when we were actually at games, and just watching interviews that you guys have been doing, and just watching people from other supporter groups just posting like a throwback of different games that we were at, and even just watching replays of games that have been airing, that helps a little bit.
Yeah. Sometimes a little goes a long way, but Alex, yeah, we appreciate what you're doing, and hopefully that curve is getting flattening, and thank you for doing the work you do, and make sure short lines for our medical workers.
Yes.
And make sure to stay home, as we're doing as well, from Alex's lips to our ears. Staying home, the best thing we can do to help them. Thanks again.
Thank you.
He enjoyed the human rain delay. It had not rained in LA in like 14 months. You show up and that happens.
When we heard that you were coming back to the broadcast, I said to myself, I need to get extra prepared. And hey, why not prepare a weather report just in case?
Get out of here, Rogues. Get out of here.
I wanted to be prepared just in case, since we knew Ian Joy's going to never want to come back. But yes, I am prepared. In case you never know, the skies could open up tonight, right?
If it rains, Ian, we have a lot of problems.
I sincerely hope not.
All right.
Welcome back to Staying Home. I'm Max, and we have a very special guest who, in a perfect world, we would be shoulder to shoulder at Bank of California Stadium. Of course, Ian Joy, that's not the case, but still great to see you even through the world of technology. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well, Max. It's great to see you as well. In unfortunate circumstances, but yes, you're right. And Los Angeles was probably pretty lucky that this happened, because there would have been a thunderstorm on April 18th had that game gone ahead, just to let you know.
Oh, abundantly clear. I had my umbrella at the car. We would have faced Real Salt Lake. We'll see you soon again. By the way, really enjoy all the work you're doing with Yes Network. If you could see, we'll talk about it through Ian being very active and serving the New York community. We could talk about Major League Soccer, Ian, but some really interesting developments out of a league that is near and dear to you, the Bundesliga. Germany opening some stores as soon as Monday of April the 20th, I believe,
Yeah.
and a look at perhaps opening the doors for the Bundesliga the second weekend of May. What can you say as they look to possibly conclude the league by June the 30th? How feasible is that plan?
Well, I can tell you that the Bundesliga is desperate to get action underway, and I think that's probably more for the financial reason than anything else. They want to help out their teams that are financially struggling because of this. It's been very difficult for many teams in the top flight, but also in the teams in the lower divisions as well, that they also have to take into consideration. Now, the DFL and, of course, the states of Germany, along with the Chancellor, Angela Merkel, have been working pretty hard to try and get things underway, and we're getting close, but it's not yet over the finish line. May 9th was the date they were talking about, trying to get the ball rolling again. So far, I don't necessarily think that is going to be possible, but I think it'll be pretty close. They have a plan. April 23rd will be a meeting. Then after that meeting will be April 30th, where they once again meet with the Chancellor and the Health Department to go over their plan to try and get the ball rolling again and get the season underway. So it is possible that we could see a May 9th begin, but I think it's going to probably be the weekend after that, or possibly towards the last week in May before we see action.
Through that all, it would appear there is an entry point here, and all eyes will be on the Bundesliga, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But which clubs in particular do you think have the most to gain by a return to play?
Well, I can tell you one who probably wouldn't be too happy with this break, and that would be Bayern Munich. I mean, they were on an incredible run. They were undefeated across all competitions in 2020 so far. They were going back into December undefeated. I think it was 15 games where they'd only drawn one of those matches. They were on fire. So they didn't want that break to happen. I think had that break, because of the game suspension, they would have been champions right now, Max, I believe. And I think the rest of the teams now go back to the preseason board. They go back to their fitness levels. They've had a good enough break now. They've got to try and get themselves ready to go again and challenge Bayern at the top of the table. So I think it gives an advantage to Borussia Dortmund. I think it also gives an advantage to Leipzig, who are chasing pretty closely. But again, it's difficult to tell. What's going to happen with the schedule? If they start on May 9th, do they start with match day 33, where it would have been, and then play 33, 34, and then go back to play the games that were not playable? Or will it go from the games that were not playable and then continue on to the end of the season? Who knows where it's going to go? Hopefully in the next 10 days, we'll find out, and then we can really start to get excited. But one thing's for sure, the Bundesliga is desperate to be back, and I think they'll be the first sporting league back. Probably competing against golf, who are desperate to get back as well.
You mentioned the teams that could benefit, and the Bundesliga clubs are doing well in Europe as well. So obviously that is all secondary here, but that stop really halted a lot of momentum. Mm-hmm. Training is first. Some teams are coming back here with regards to clubs like playing with 4 guys in training. Some are still training indoors. So we have Bayern and Borussia Dortmund getting out into the parks. Werder Bremen, Freiburg indoors. What are your thoughts on how that is not evenly distributed amongst the clubs and what effect that might have?
I think it'll have an effect, but I don't think the Bundesliga will begin the campaign again until all the teams are at the same level. Now, I recognize that different states around Germany are in a different level of dealing with this issue. And of course, there's obviously more dangerous areas than others in Germany, so you have to be careful how many groups you have. Now, the first week they came back to training, they were only training in twos with one coach. So you only had 2 players with one coach, and you could not change that coach. You could not change that partner you were training with. That happened for 7 days. Then it jumped up to 4 players. And we were hoping that this week they would jump up to full competitive training in many states. Not all of them, like you mentioned, but in many states. But at the moment, I just spoke to an assistant coach today from Freiburg who told me that they're still being forced to train with 4 players, groups of 4, and 1 coach, and that is the maximum they can have right now. But I think we're only a week to 10 days away, like we talked about before, having the regulation, or at least the understanding as to far as when the season will get underway again. And then they have to give these teams an opportunity to train competitively, Max. There's no way after such a break that they've had that they can go into a Bundesliga game after 9 days of only training in competitive spirit. There's no way that can happen. So teams need to get back to match fitness so that injuries don't happen, and also that there's a fairness in the competitive spirit.
Many lower division leagues have been canceled, as is the case. What if the Bundesliga did not go forward, would it be Bayern gets the championship nod? Do the bottom three get relegated? Relegation is, many feel, an endangered species for the time being.
Yeah, and of course, each domestic league is very different, including our own in Major League Soccer. It's very different. We're, I guess, a little fortunate that the season was only just getting underway, whereas if you've completed 25 competitive games in your regular season, it's very difficult because you're building out towards a championship. You're making a run for a European place. You're trying to fight away from relegation. I think if they cancel the league, let's say the Bundesliga did cancel, something happened, a player caught the virus and the season had to be ended, then I think it would be unfair to relegate any team, because as long as there's a chance for teams to compete with 9 games left to go in the Bundesliga, 10 games for Werder Bremen, they've got a game in hand. But in the bottom table, they've got a chance still. There's still a lot of points to try and win there. So I think it would be an unfair disappointment to me to actually relegate any team.
By the way, no relegation in Liga MX for 5 years. And to your point, as you touched on, everyone's going to be watching the Bundesliga to see if someone gets infected, to see if it goes great, to see if they can have a pathway for other leagues. More importantly, Ian, the bigger question right now is, how did you cut your hair? What's going on? What happened?
All right, I'll tell you what happened. I got home and I said to my wife, I've wanted to shave my hair for a long time. A while. Since I was playing was the last time I shaved my hair. And of course, when you're working in broadcasting, not everybody is as lucky as you, Max Bretos, to look as beautiful as you do. Wonderful.
Not my hair. My hair's not beautiful. I might shave it too.
I said to Nicole, my wife, please just get the blades out and give it a go. So we had some fun with it as well.
Yes. Well, we saw it. We got the video of it, of your hair. It's a nice family gathering. So very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, Ian, you're not the only top athlete getting your hair cut. And you mentioned good hair. No one has better hair than Cristiano Ronaldo. And this is what he did to resolve it. I mean, I have not cut my hair since, for the record, but that time is coming close, if by hook or by crook. But what do you think of Ronaldo's methods?
You got to do it, Max. I'm telling you right now, I have seen some dodgy haircuts. Cristiano's haircut has always been rather dodgy to me. So allowing his wife to now cut his hair is a little scary. He looks quite excited about it. I don't blame him. That's pretty cool. I love it. I think people are just stuck in this moment. You've got to just deal with it, what's happening right now. And of course, haircuts are starting to get a little crazy.
He has a compound there in a lot of people, so I mean, that's a unique circumstance, but more power to him. And you know the good part about cutting his hair? It's all going to grow back. It's Ronaldo.
Yeah. And plus, I'm actually surprised, Max, why he doesn't have his own individual hairdresser anyway.
Yeah, lives there on the premises full time. He probably does. Maybe this is all for show. Okay, so hair cutting is a big issue here, and we're going to play a little game called Around the Web, where we find some footage or some clips. And I want you to give the clip about what happened here, either a warning, a yellow card, or a red card. This is a father. His son asked him to get his hair cut like Ronaldo, and this is what happened. He asked for the Cristiano Ronaldo hair, but he just said Ronaldo. His dad had a sense of humor, and he went with Ronaldo Fenomeno.
All right, so he wants it like that.
Yes.
Right.
So that's, you know, where dad taking some liberties.
Hair's looking good.
And you wonder what the Ronaldo Fenomeno haircut looks like, but you'll all remember, I think, the 2002 World Cup look. The little patch in the front.
You got the wrong Ronaldo.
Got the wrong Ronaldo.
That is mean. That is a mean father right there. The kid's probably devastated.
He was.
Let's be honest. We all know who the real Ronaldo is.
Yes. And you know what? We all know who the real Ian Joy is. And Ian, it's great to chat with you. You're the best, buddy. Keep doing the great work for all our friends out there in the New York tri-state area with Yes Network. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon, buddy. Thanks for having me.
All right, that'll wrap up Staying Home. So certainly appreciate Ian, Alex, and Bob Bradley for joining us. We'll see you very soon on the LA Network. Stay connected. Stay home.